Hello everyone, my name's Harriet Gaffney and I'm the Project Coordinator for Writability, and Writability goes regional and online. And thank you very much for joining us this morning for our Writability Fellowship information session. Now, first of all, I'll just tell you a few things. One, I'm not terribly familiar with this system, so I'll be looking around a lot and just checking who's actually logged in, and also I can see your questions. So if you tap in questions into the question screen, I can see them and I'll read them out. So not everyone can see them, so just bear with me and I'll obviously make sure that I answer the questions as fully as I can. So before we start, I might just give you an overview of the program itself. What is a Writability Fellowship is often a question that we actually get in the office. So I'll talk a little about that. The Writability Fellowships support emerging writers with disability with tailored professional development support, such as manuscript assessment, mentoring, and curated programs of workshops, etc. The fellowships are now in their 6th year, and past fellows have included Carly Findlay, Jackie Brown, Michelle Roger, Kate Hood, Nicole Smith, and Sarah Widom, just to name a few. And you can actually look at some of the writing that those fellows have done with us for their fellowships on our archive. So on your screen here, you can see both me, and you can shrink me if you want to, and also the Writers Victoria homepage. So as we go through this webinar, I'm going to be sort of scrolling through the homepage to show you where some things are, to take you through the form, etc. So if you've got any questions about the Writers Victoria website, etc., just please do tap them into the box. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, please excuse me for looking down because I am reading from notes, because it's really important, I think, that we get as much information across as possible. First, I'm going to start with a question that seems basic, but for some, like it's not really, and that is, who is eligible for Writability and for the Writability Fellowships? So to understand who's eligible, you really need to understand the Writability program itself, and the entire program is actually underpinned by the social model of disability, which means that it's for anyone who experiences barriers as a result of their particular impairment or condition. So that would be lack of physical access, communication barriers, discrimination, or other people's attitudes. So this includes, but is not limited to, people with sensory or physical impairment, hidden impairments, invisible disabilities, for example, ongoing medical conditions, intellectual impairments, learning difficulties, or mental health conditions. So the reason that we will ask, and I'm presuming that most of you have already gone through the form, and I'm going to address one of the earliest questions on that form, and that is, we ask if you identify. Now, the reason that we ask if you identify as a person with disability is not so that we can then, tick particular boxes, etc. It's really to ensure that we can then work out your access needs, if you have any, and so that they're met, so that those barriers to your inclusion in Writers Victoria's programs, if there are any, can be removed. So if you need an Auslan interpreter, if you need a water bowl for your dog, if we need to make sure that there's lift access and accessible toilets, etc. When we ask you that question, it's really about making sure that those things are removed so that you can fully participate in the program. Another question that we often receive is, what does it mean to identify for Writability? So we ask that people self-identify as a person with disability or as someone who experiences barriers as a result of their condition. And if that's so, then Writability is definitely for you. We're not going to ask you to prove your condition. We don't want to know about your medical, about medical reports, anything like that. We just want to make sure that we're able to fully, to make fully accessible the program for you, to ensure your participation in it. Another one of the questions that is often asked of us is, what type of writing can I apply with? Past fellowships of this program, past fellows from the program, there's been at least 30 now, have applied with all sorts of different writing. So every different genre you can imagine. We've had memoirists, YA writers, poets, bloggers, screenwriters, and writers of literary fiction. In other words, we accept all genres of writing, whether it be for the page, the computer, or any other type of screen. A really important question that comes up often is, does the writing have to be about disability? And it's a really firm no. It's a question that comes up a lot for the program, but in selecting the Writability Fellows, we look for writers who demonstrate commitment to excellent writing first and foremost. Writers that demonstrate they're willing to do the hard yards to make their writing the best it can be in whatever genre and about whatever subject. Whilst many of our participants and past fellows do write about disability, or rather perhaps about the way the world engages with them as people with disability, it is not a requirement of this program. So in thinking about this webinar, I wondered whether one of the reasons some of Australia's leading disability advocates, many of whom are indeed alumni of the Writability Fellowships, may simply, when they write about disability and they become advocates, it may simply be because of that well-known writing adage, write what you know. People with disability, like any writers, know themselves best. They know their own stories and know the way that they may have been discriminated against by a society that continues to marginalise people considered different to the norm. The reality is that the stories that make us more resilient, more aware, more engaged, are often those that we've spent the longest time reflecting upon, working through and with, and thus they may well speak the loudest to others as well. But this does not mean that we favour non-fiction over fiction if you're writing about yourself, or that we require you to write about anything that you don't want to. For example, one of our fellows this year, Mary Borsellino, she's writing YA fiction and it's fantasy, and there is actually an excerpt of her work that she submitted for the Writability Fellowship on our website. So what I will do is I'll just briefly now move over this image of myself on the screen so I can see the Writers Victoria webpage and take you through the site a little bit. So when I talk about Mary's and in fact our other alumni's works, if we look at featured writers, so over here under the Writing Life, if we go to featured writers, if you're interested in seeing some excerpts of work from fellows, it's a really good place to go here, just so you can have a look at the various different types of writing that we have selected over in the past. And so now that we're here, we're in the featured writers, and I have to move all sorts of things out of the way so I can see what's going on. And then you should be able to, except I can't see my screen properly. Bear with me, please. You should be able to, yeah, scroll down and then you'll see a whole lot of different articles by writers. So for example, there is a space here. Who's this by? This is by Sonia Marcon, again, another 2017 fellow. And it gives you a really good idea as to the different types of writing that we are, you know, advocating for and facilitating in this space. And then you can read through these works, see if there's anything that's similar to yours, etc., etc. But as I said, there's a whole lot in the writing section here of excerpts from past fellows. So I'm just clicking through the pages, and many of the featured writers here, they actually are Writability Fellows. Young People Don't Get Sick here, that was from our first regional program in Geelong. Write What You Don't Know is another one. So these are all coming from writers with disability throughout the state, many of whom, as I said, have been Writability Fellows. Okay, so going back to my notes a little, as I said, we don't favour non-fiction over fiction. We don't favour any genre. We really just want to read work that's exciting, that the writer is really engaged with. We want to see that your writing, you are as engaged with your writing as you want us to be. Okay, another one of last year's fellows, Jess Walton, she came to us after publishing a children's book, Introducing Teddy, about gender diversity. Sarah Widom, who was a 2015 fellow, she's a beautiful sort of lyrical fantasy, which is memoir, but actually when you're reading it, and again, you will find her work here in our archive, when you're reading it, you know, it's very, if you don't know Sarah, it's very difficult to see that it is actually memoir, but the power of the writing was so strong that, of course, we offered her a fellowship. So the one commonality, really, amongst all of the writers who apply for fellowships is that the writing is strong. We don't preference one genre over another. We don't preference writing about disability over writing about anything. You know, your work can be the sort of most fantastical, you know, whether it's a novel, YA, etc. As long as it's good, strong writing and you're showing your commitment to it. I will say, however, that perhaps one of the reasons why so many of the past alumni of this program have gone on to become some of Australia's leading disability advocates is because our own experience is, I would suggest, probably the greatest tool for our writing. So it can be powerful, hard-hitting, literal accounts of life, of living life with difference, or it can be poetry that makes our skin prickle with an understanding that goes beyond the brain. How and what you write for your fellowship is entirely up to you. Our desired outcome in running the program is not about what you write, but that the fellowship facilitates your growth as a writer, that it helps you to take your work and indeed your writing career to the next level. So I see now that we've got quite a few people logged on already. It's great. Thank you very much for joining us. Please, as I said, if you've got individual questions, do post them so that I can read them and try and answer them for you. I'll keep going just with the notes that I've prepared, but again, please engage with me. We're here to answer your questions. It's exactly why we've done this information session. Another question that we get often is, at what stage should I apply? And this is a question that I really want you to think about. If you've just got the seeds of an idea in your head, and I've had several people, you know, email this question to me over the last few weeks as they've been thinking about applying for the fellowship. If this is an idea in your head that you haven't yet started to work through on the page, I would really suggest that you spend the next year actually getting the work onto the page. We all know that in the process of writing, that's when the magic happens. And so you might have an idea here, but once you start to translate it to the page, you might find that it's taking you in another direction. So we really need work when we're assessing the applications. Timing is really important. We need to know that you're deeply involved and you know where your manuscript is going. Okay, so we're looking for work that is in progress, well thought out, and with achievable goals. So what I'll do now is I'm going to take you to the Readability page. So if you go to support, if you're not familiar with our website, go to support, scroll down to Writers with Disability. And then I'm going to take you, once I move my screen away from all of these boxes that are open, I'm going to take you to, well, I'm trying to take you to the fellowship page itself. So down here, Readability Fellowships, we'll go to there. And then I'm going to click through to more information. So when you're looking at the form, and I'll open it up now. When you're looking at the form, before you even approach writing down, I mean, obviously fill in your name and everything, but before you start to actually write what you want from the application or from the fellowship, sit down with a journal, with your notepad, whatever it is that you generally write in, with your voiceover software, etc., and start to brainstorm for yourself, what actually are my goals for this work? Okay, so what are the goals and who are you writing it for? Why are you writing it? And that's another reason why it might be good to go through and to start looking through the archives and reading the different types of work that we have accepted fellowships for. Because if someone's already written, if there's already 300 books or something on the particular topic that you're looking at, it's going to have to be an extraordinary, you know, the work's going to have to be extraordinary for us to think, okay, this is something that we can, you know, that we're able to work with, you know, it's something that we can really help extend this writer in this field. So what are my goals for the work? What do I want to do with it? Or what are my goals for my fellowship? You know, do I want to take a manuscript that I already have to the next level? Do I want to actually be able to engage with someone, with a critical thinker in my area about what I want the work to do? So do I want a mentor? You know, why am I writing this particular work? Is there, I mean, this is the reality of being a writer. With so much being generated both online and in print these days, how does your work stand out? And why is your writing, why does it take your subject matter to another place? And then how can I improve my work? Because ultimately, that's what we're here for. You know, writing is a craft, and there's that old adage of it takes 10,000 hours to become, you know, to become professional at something. It's a craft, and we have to keep turning up and we have to keep writing. So this last question, how can I improve my work? That's probably the one that you will use to inform what you apply for with your fellowship. Applications that express clear creative goals will be well considered by the people that are assessing them. So we're asking you to drill down into what it is that you think will help develop your work. Will it be attending workshops in a particular genre? Will it be workshops in editing, in character, in point of view? You know, what is it that you think will really help you to improve your work? Or is your manuscript at a stage where a manuscript assessment would really help you take it to the next level? Okay, so for example, I'll talk about Jess Walton's fellowship a little bit more last year. Jess came to us and she really, you know, she had this children's book already published, but she really wanted to start exploring other aspects of writing craft. And so, but she had a very good idea that she wanted to try different things. She wanted to try poetry, she wanted to try work that addressed writing the body, she wanted to try creative nonfiction, etc. So we were able to sit down with her, and after discussing with her what she was looking at, have a dialogue about what sort of things would work best for her fellowship. And in the end, she decided to do a curated program of workshops that really helped her start to try new things. So she's creating new work out of the fellowship, and so we didn't really take an existing piece anywhere further, but she was so committed to the process and so committed to the process of growing herself as a writer that it was an incredibly strong application. So if that is something that you're interested in, if you want the opportunity to try different things and to reassess your work in light of different genres, etc., that's definitely something that we're interested in helping you achieve. With the manuscript assessment, you know, so Mary Borsellino, again, she had a manuscript that she went through the site. So I've taken here to the fellowships, but another really important aspect of our site is our tutors page. So do familiarise yourself with our website if you're not. Go to the Our Tutors page and just look through the different people that we work with. So Mary had already, you know, she was very familiar with our website. She was very familiar with Writers Victoria, and she loved the work of YA writer Siobhan Plozza. So she ended up having a manuscript assessment with Siobhan and has just submitted to me a completed manuscript, which is really exciting. And so, you know, that was an incredibly sort of fruitful period for her, working one-on-one with someone who's already well published, you know, a sort of rising star in the YA genre. And she was able to give incredibly good feedback and direction for Mary so that she could really move that manuscript to a stage where, you know, she can now look for publication. Of course, it takes time, drilling down into your own work, asking what does it need, what would I value from, you know, what value would I gain? This all takes time, but I think that's one of the beautiful things about applications like this, and not only for the Writability Fellowships, but of course there are lots of other arts bodies that do have grants as well. And it's that opportunity to drill down and work into what it is you're working with is invaluable. So I'm just having a little, just reading something on here. Okay, so Alex Fairhill, who's the project assistant for Writability, she's just raising the point with me, and thanks, Alex, that absolutely it's worth noting that not all assessors and mentors that can be elected are on our website. So if you've got a writer that you know, or a writer who you admire, you know, preferably Victoria based, because that will make it easier for us to, you know, do the logistics around it. But if there is a writer whose work you admire, or an editor, etc., and you would really like to work with them, absolutely you can nominate them on your form and say, I would like to work with this person. So name it on your form. Be quite specific. I want to work with so-and-so because I love the way that they do this. I think that what they do here could really help me with this area of my own practice. What roadblocks are you coming to? Could working with a mentor or an assessor help you move through that? Okay, one of the things I really want to specify and sort of go into a little bit more is that it's really important to remember that writers are not writing for themselves. Often that's where our writing can start. But if you really are looking to take your writing to the next level, you're looking for an audience. So if you don't know what your key underlying message is for your work, or if you're expressing something that's been expressed a million times before, the work's not going to have the impact that's necessary for its success. So this questioning process is really important for you to be very honest with yourself and say, okay, how can I make it better? How can I make it the best it's going to be, or it can be? And how can I use the fellowship to do that? And those applications where we can see someone has put in that amount of thought and that they're really hungry for this opportunity to improve their own work, they're the applications that are going to do really well. Okay, so another question that we've had is, what are we actually looking for, or what are we specifically looking for in a fellow? As I said, we're looking for writers who have really thought through what they want to do with their writing project. Really importantly, we're looking for writers who can demonstrate that they're going to turn up to the page and do the work that they set themselves by taking this fellowship. There's only 5 opportunities, and also we know that part of making this program accessible is being fluid, us being flexible about how the program is run and working with individual needs, but we still need to know that this writer is going to turn up to the page and that they're willing to commit themselves to the work. We also need writers, this is hard and we all go through this, every person that's at Writers Victoria, every person here at the Wheeler Centre, we're all writers, okay? So we need people who can understand that the assistance that they receive is absolutely in order to help their work be the best that it can be. And sometimes that can be confronting. If someone says, look, I don't think this is working, we need, there's a word that's often bandied about in disability, we need you to have some resilience around the fact that any critique that's brought to your work is brought to your work as a, we don't see it as it's not the end of the road, it's actually an opportunity, If you've got an assessor or you're working with a mentor and they say, oh, I don't think this is working, have you thought about this? That's an opportunity to go, ooh, and to really get into that and to take it further. And it's often those knots that we come to in our creative practice, in our writing. Once we start to, dig into those knots, I was having this conversation with Alex yesterday in regards to what I'm working on at the moment. Those knots can feel terrible and really sort of daunting. But once we start to dig into them, that's often where the most rich writing material is. And we here at Writers Victoria absolutely see the fellowships as an opportunity for you to have that space to really get deeply involved with those areas of your work that are problematic, because I think there's definitely truth in the fact that that's where the gold lies. We also, I'll come back to that sort of 10,000 hours adage. It's a craft. We don't get better at things unless we practice and we practice and we practice. Be prepared to fail. We all do, and just keep coming back to it. Try different things and work with your mentor or with the assessment or with, all of the different workshops that you do to try to use it as an opportunity to try new things and to burrow deeper and deeper into what it is you actually want to achieve. And we're really looking for, when we're looking for a fellow, writers who would not otherwise have the opportunity to do what we're offering. So we are looking for emerging writers. We're looking for writers who feel that they've taken themselves to a certain level, but who would really, get very deeply involved with this fellowship process. We don't like to lose people along the way. If something does come up, if health becomes an issue and you need to take time off, etc., we can negotiate around that. As I said, we're very flexible and we absolutely understand the need for that flexibility. But we want to know that this is a driving sort of force in you. Your project is a driving force. It's not something that you sort of had tucked away and not thought about. We want it to be actively engaging you right now. So another question is, what is the process if I'm successful? Okay, so the first step in that process is that you'll be meeting with me as the project coordinator, and we'll talk about your individual project. It's an opportunity for you to sort of tell us more than what you told us in the form. So what the project is about for you, and talk to me about, what sort of issues you're having with it, where you want the next step to be for that. And we can talk about the best ways for that to be. So as I mentioned Jess several times, and Jess came to us with one idea about what her fellowship was, but ultimately after this discussion, we realised, together that the best thing probably was for her to try lots of different things in workshops and things. So it's really about sitting down with, a team of people who understand the process of writing and how arduous it can be sometimes. Going, okay, so what concrete things can Writers Victoria actually put in place for you to help you take it to the next level? After that, it's about refining that process. After that, we're going to get you to sign a fellowship agreement. And the reason we do that, it's really about, that's getting you to commit on paper to the fact that you are taking part in this fellowship and that you want it to take, that there is an end objective. So we will work out those objectives in that meeting together, and then you will sign that. Now, no one's going to come knocking at the door in the middle of the night or whatever if you're unable to complete your fellowship. Or if things don't turn out the way that you wanted, etc. However, it's really about making a commitment to your own writing practice and yourself as a writer. And that's possibly the most difficult thing in being any arts practitioner, I think, is actually the only person at the end of the day who really, who's going to tell you, you're not doing it right or this or that is you. So we're just asking you to think deeply about, is this the time for me? Am I willing to commit to what is really a very, special opportunity? Okay. Once you've signed your agreement, the appropriate Writers Victoria staff member will then set up what it is that you've agreed upon. For example, Diane, who runs our manuscript assessments and mentoring, she will be in contact with you if that's the path that you've decided to take, or if you've decided to do a curated program of workshops and events, then either myself or Alex will liaise with you to get those organised and just to be in contact with you regarding how that's going. And even in mid-process, for example, with those workshops, if you've decided that you want to do one workshop and then you think, oh no, I'm really enjoying where this poetry workshop has taken me, and you decide to choose to swap to another poetry workshop of a different type, that's of course negotiable. So another thing I will ask you to do is to look online at our events going forward for the next 6 months. Our new program is about to be launched. We have an incredibly rich program of events coming up in the next 6 months with lots of different opportunities. So have a look at it and think about, how would that benefit my writing practice? And that also might be a way, even if you're not looking at doing workshops, just reading through the types of workshops that we offer could help you recognise what it is that might work for you. Okay, so we've got quite a few people online. I must be giving you a wealth of wonderful information, I figure, because no one's really asking me any questions. But please, if you do have some questions, do let me know. So another thing that we're introducing this year is that we would like you to keep a creative practice journal. Oh, look, a question. I'll come back to you in a moment, Suya and Lara, in regards to those questions. I'm just going to finish here. So what we would like you to do as part of this process, and this is entirely for you, we're not going to grade you or anything like that on this, but we'd like you to keep a creative practice journal because it's very good. One of the sort of remarkable things that you learn as you really do commit yourself to your writing craft is what your best process is. So we really want you to think about that, you know, try and work out what times a day perhaps are best for you to do writing, what environment is good for you, you know, when you've tried new things, if this worked or if that didn't work, etc. And really just keep ongoing notes about that. I'm not asking you to write volumes or anything, but I just think you'll find in the 6 months of the fellowship period that you'll learn an awful lot about yourself as a writer if you do keep notes along the way. So just, oh, I've got lots of questions now, thanks. Okay, so Suya, when will we announce the participants in this fellowship? We're going to be announcing those in the last week of June. And we will obviously announce to the individual fellows prior, but at the Emerging Writers Festival at the Subversion event on Tuesday the 26th of June, we'll be announcing the 5 fellows there. And in regards to how many people generally apply, about sort of 30, between 30 and 40. So yeah, there's a few, and we do, and please, if you've applied before, apply again because actually your applications get better and better. I think if you've applied once and you haven't got there, keep refining it. And this is something that all of us who work in the arts or who work as arts practitioners, and I include writers obviously as part of that, the more we refine our work, the closer we get to the goals that we want. Okay. Another question that comes up is, and Alex already raised this, is do I get my choice in my mentor or manuscript assessor? Yes, you do. If we can, obviously if they're a tutor with us already, it's a little bit easier, but absolutely if there's a mentor or a manuscript assessor that you want to work with, we're absolutely happy to, at the very least, approach them and see if they would be willing to take part in the process. Most writers are really generous, as you're probably aware, because we all started, you know, at some, you know, at this point, and you know, we're moving along a path. So generally, writers are really generous. If there's someone you particularly want to work with, we're very, very happy to try and accommodate that. Okay. And again, though, familiarise yourself with our tutors. Read the featured writers section of our website because that will, you know, you'll learn lots of tips and things about how to apply, etc. Familiarise yourself with the tutors and at least have an idea as to what sort of writer you would like to work with. And then, of course, we'll give you advice on that during the meeting. But partly in identifying someone you'd like to work with, you're also showing us that you have done the work behind the scenes, that you know what you want, and that you really are prepared to take this opportunity and go for it. Okay, so another question is outcomes. What outcomes are expected? Well, we can't tell you what those outcomes are because we need you to know. Okay, that's why we're asking you to really understand what it is that you want from your process, from this process, what it is you want from your project, and what your goals are. So where would you, we really need to flip that question, where would you like the fellowship to take you? Now, if you've only got a fledgling idea and you haven't put words on, you know, haven't even begun to write yet, I would probably advise you not to apply this year, but actually, if you've got a list of chapters, that is an incredibly good start. And in fact, that's a narrative arc. So if you've got a list of chapters and you haven't yet written, start writing some of those chapters, or at least collecting notes under each heading as to where you want to go. We want to be able to, you know, help you achieve your goals, but the person that really has to do that is the writer themselves, which is one of the terrible things about writing because we have to keep turning up to it. As you might be able to tell, I'm struggling a little with my own creative process at the moment. So, you know, I'm talking to myself as well when I talk you through all of this. Okay, so has anyone got any particular questions about the form or anything that they'd like me in particular to address? I'll just wait and see if anything flicks up on my screen. If you don't have any questions about the form, one thing that both myself and Alex have talked about in regards to the fellowships is obviously the wealth of information on the Writers Victoria site, but also I'm taking you back now to the home page. When you look at resources here, lots of writing advice, etc. Please familiarise yourself with it. Show us that you have done your homework and your application will be so much stronger for it. One of the things that I've suggested to a couple of people, and I've been so thrilled by the applications that have come in as a result, is that you go type into our search engine up here, Synopsis, and go and read on our site what we actually have, you know, what people who work in the industry have given us around synopses, and look at that and actually write your application with this in mind. Now, excuse the slowness of our internet here. I've made notes about this information session. I'm happy to send those out to all of you. But right now I'm going to take you here. So this is a fantastic précis of what a synopsis is, and it really makes you stand outside of your own creative project and look at it and go, okay, so what is it that I'm actually doing? Because often we can be so involved in the writing that we don't see the wood for the trees, as they say. So actually go have a look around the site, look at this article, what makes a good synopsis, read through it and actually try and write a synopsis for your work, I suppose. And so there's two things I want you to look at. Look at the pitching information, the information on how to pitch, P-I-T-C-H, and also the synopsis. So the synopsis is really what happens, you know, and it's a 2-word or a 2-line, 2 to 3 line sort of précis of what happens in your book. But obviously you want it to, or your project, you want it to grab the reader, you know. It's not so-and-so did this, da-da-da. You want it really to grab the reader. And then the pitch, so the difference between the pitch and the synopsis is what happens. The pitch is what's it about, okay? So read through these sections on the side and then try writing both a pitch and a synopsis, and then utilise those in your actual application. Oh, I've got more questions. Okay, so Celia, yeah, Celia's asked, does the mentor read your work and discuss it, or is it just industry information? The mentor will actually read excerpts of your work, obviously, so you get up to 6 hours of mentoring time. So usually what we suggest is that perhaps you have 3 to, say, 4 meetings with the mentor, which gives them half an hour before each meeting to do some reading. So you might send them, you know, a 2 to 3,000 word or 2,000 word excerpt of where your writing is at before each meeting. They can take some notes, then meet with you either in person or via Skype, etc., and go through what it is that you're actually, where the writing is at and what they suggest you do to enrich that. If you want industry information, that's probably a little bit further down the track. But again, use our website, because all of those, there's lots of information about the industry, when is a good time to approach a publisher, what is a literary agent, etc. So yeah, I hope that answers that question for you. Another thing that I think is really important to talk about is the 1,000 word excerpt that we're looking for. The number one piece of information I'm going to give you about that is that it needs to be current. Please don't submit work to us that's, you know, you haven't looked at for 10 years or something, because we need to see that you really are engaged with that. Are you looking at the start? You know, are we looking at the start? Do we want 1,000 words from the start of your project, or do we want the strongest work, etc.? Should it be consecutive? I think the sort of agreed maximum is that it should be consecutive, 1,000 words of consecutive work. Of course, if it's poetry that you're sending, submit, you know, 5 to 10 poems from the body of work that you're putting together. But please make it current. I can't tell you how many sort of works we've received from people that they haven't looked at since, you know, 2000 or something. And it's, we can't, because we're assessing quite a few applications and there are only 5 fellowships, we are going to select the people who seem to be most engaged with their work, because we really, we need to feed the people that are hungry, if that's, if I can put it that way. We need you to put the work in, and we need you more than us to be driven by your own work. We need to see that you're powerfully engaged and excited by your own project. And so if you're involved in it right now and you're writing it, that shows us that you're engaged with it. It's, the fellowship's not going to work to kickstart you in your writing if you're not already engaged. It's sort of a sad truth that if you're not there and doing the work, it's probably not the best time for you to do the fellowship. I would really make yourself turn up, do the work, and then apply. What else am I getting? Non-consecutive work. If it's excerpts that give us show us the narrative arc and show us sort of where the work is going, that can work, but it needs to make sense to us as a whole, and it needs to grab us. And remember, if you're, often a publisher will say, for example, if you submit work to a publisher, they'll, I got asked the question recently, why did you submit chapter 7? You don't need to submit the first chapter, but if your first chapter is not grabbing someone, is not grabbing the reader, that tells you something about the work. You need the reader to be grabbed in the first paragraph so they continue, because there's nothing holding them there except the quality of your work. Yes, you only have 1,000 words. So submit work that gives us a good idea of what the project is about, who it's targeted for, and your style as a writer. It doesn't necessarily have to be the first chapter. The publisher I submitted chapter 7 to, she still wanted to read more. Maybe it was a good ploy, maybe it got her in. But remember, if the first page is not grabbing the reader, they're not going to read on, as I said. And that's a really key sort of point. Okay, I've got another question from Sue. Okay, I can only attend online events and workshops. Will the calendar be updated before the closing date so I can get an idea of what will be possible for me to attend and tie that into my application? So I actually think the program is going to be launched the day before the applications are due. So yeah, it is tight. Very good question, Sue, because look, you've stumped me. You can only attend online events and workshops. So it'd be great if you could tell me, can you attend workshops in person or only online workshops? It seems to me it's probably only online. You might want to give me a call about that. I'm in the office. So anyone, if you do want to give me a call, please, I do work only part-time. So I'm available today and tomorrow, and my number is 0466544880. I work regionally as well, so I'm giving you my private mobile number, but I do ask you to please remember that it's my private number and don't share it widely and just use it within business hours. So yeah. Oh, and Alex is in the office on Mondays to take calls as well. Alex, you're a gem. Okay, so expected. Is there anyone got any questions about the form? Is anyone struggling with the form or anything like that? If you do, please give me those questions now. But yes, Sue, do call me. It would be good, Sue, actually, if you could just type into the question box now what genre you're working in, and I could actually have a quick look at the program in my hands now and tell you if I think there's anything there. Our digital, we have more and more digitally over the next 6 months. We are definitely expanding in that space, ultimately to reach regional members and members who do have difficulty, coming into the metropolitan-based workshops, etc. We do want to make our program as accessible to everyone as possible. So there is, as I said, more and more. You could, for example, take part in the, we've got digital clinics, etc. Digital intensives and all of those things. So yes. Oh, excerpt of Word to send, MS, Word or PDF. I think, look, it doesn't, either way will work for us because we will print them up and take notes on them by hand. So whichever works for you best is best for us. You're working in fiction, so okay. I know that we have digital novel intensives, short story writing clinics, etc. What I might do, Sue, if you can email me at regional@writersvictoria.org.au, I will send you through, once I finish this, a list of all of the online clinics and things that we have. Or, so if you're, you know, I mean, if you're looking at a mentorship, etc., then that, of course, could be done online as well via Skype. So if you're living regionally, or it's not possible for you to come in, then absolutely we can do things online. Okay. Thank you, Suya. I'm glad to know it's helpful. I think I'm pretty much done. One of the things I did want to talk about, and again, it comes out of a conversation Alex and I have had in the past few weeks about the whole process of applying for things as writers, whether you're applying for a Writability Fellowship or any grant or application, is that if you don't receive it, I still don't think you can underestimate how good it is for your own writing craft to actually make an application and to sort of do that really sort of cognitive, you know, to do that sort of meta. Sorry, I'm losing my language and I'm going into academic language, but to do that thinking, that objective thinking about your writing practice and to actually perceive it as a practice. You know, this is my creative practice. The reasons I do it are for this. The reasons I'm actually writing this is because of this. You know, and to really drill down into that. And, you know, as I think everyone in Writers Victoria office knows, we've all been knocked back things. We've all not received grants, etc., that we've applied for, or fellowships or writing residencies, etc. But the more we apply, the closer we get to, well, the better we get at understanding our own work and the closer we get to actually picking up those grants, etc., when they become available. So if you don't receive a fellowship, we only have 5. People will miss out, but please don't underestimate the value of the process. And we will, you know, every application and there are people online, you know, there are people that have applied for 3 or 4 years running, and I promise you, you are getting closer each time. It's quite uncanny how deeply it makes you think about your own, you know, if you really, you know, follow the advice that I've given you, think about the synopsis idea, think about the pitch, think about what it is and why you're writing. It will just make your own clarity around what you're doing so much better, and your work will be richer as a result. Will you receive feedback? With our limited time and resources, yes, you will. And that might be a good thing. If you're not, it might, obviously that feedback's not going to be unlimited because we don't, you know, we do have limited time and resources. However, we will definitely give you some feedback on your work and also suggestions as to how you might tighten your application for the future. And don't just, remember there's more than the Writability Fellowships, and so I will point out again that all of the webinars that we do here at Writers Victoria, they are actually available online for future use. So you can just sort of look up webinars in the search engine, go to our resources, etc. Jess Walton did a webinar for us about 3 months ago now about opportunities for writers. So there are a lot of opportunities out there. Becoming a Writers Victoria member, if you're not already, that will really help you to know what is available to you, because we send out those opportunities, etc. as part of our e-news. We have an opportunities page in the magazine that you get bi-monthly as part of your membership, etc. I have more questions. Yes, you can get feedback. So yeah, I think we will give feedback, particularly if you've applied before and you'd like more detailed feedback once, you know, the results are out. If you haven't received a fellowship, please give me a call. I'm happy to talk through your application with you. And we're always happy to give you advice, you know, going forward about how we think you can tighten or, you know, make richer the work, what you're working on. We're just at the end of the phone or via email, etc. And keep your application and redraft it and tighten it, you know, and think about the things that you know, the information that we're giving you and say, okay, so I need to drill down into what I'm looking at, what I'm writing. You know, why am I writing this? Who is it for? And tighten those applications, because if you don't get this one this time, you know, Australia Council, I know that the Australia Council is not receiving many applications from artists with disability, whether you be a writer, a musician, etc. You know, that's a fabulous opportunity there. So start searching around what is available. You know, look at the Australia Council, look at Creative Victoria, look at Regional Arts Victoria, see what opportunities are there, and use this application and the feedback that you get to make richer and richer applications for other things going forward. I think we're sort of coming to the end of the information I have to give you now. If you've got any questions, I've got about 5 minutes left, so please do shoot them through now. We've got, so far, we've got some, I mean, I have to tell you the level of the applications this year is good. It's really good, and we're excited by it. It's going to be very difficult to make the choice. So as well as obviously strength of work and our sort of faith that the writer is going to be able to do what they say they're going to do, we'll also be looking at things as, you know, whether these are all metropolitan based, etc., etc. So we'll be looking for a diverse spread of diverse writers, I'll put it that way. But, you know, do the best application you can. And I'm also willing, because I know that this application process has been, you know, we've extended it and some of you have already actually submitted. If you want to tighten up your application as a result of this information session, etc., and resubmit prior to Tuesday, feel free. I'm very happy to take updated submissions using some of this information, you know. So if you do feel that you can drill down further into what it is you're doing, identify better what you're aiming to do and who your target audience is, etc., please do. You know, it's not, I don't think it's an arduous application process, but you might want to tighten those questions around what it is that you're looking for, etc., etc., and then resubmit. So I'm very happy to take those submissions from you, because we won't be looking at anything until after Tuesday. Okay, I don't seem to have any more questions coming up. Oh, look, how long is the typical application? Lara, probably under 2,000 words. So 1,000 words for the extract, though if you're a poet, obviously the works, you know, it would be rare to get 1,000 words of poetry, but you know, maybe 200 per question, perhaps 200 words. Though I think using the information I've given you now, you might want to be more precise about what it is you want, and, you know, perhaps give us a little bit more than, you know, 2 or 3 lines asking about why you want the fellowship. You know, really, because I know from my own experience in writing grants and things, and Alex as well and the other staff members, identify what it is you want. You know, tell us so that we can get as excited about your project as you are. Okay, just scouting through the questions, excuse me. I think that might be about it. I'm not getting any more questions. As I said, so Tuesday is the cutoff. It's Tuesday the 6th. The 6th is cutoff, whichever day that is, excuse me. And yeah, we're really happy to receive phone calls in the interim about, you know, if you've got any further questions. And as I said, if you have already submitted, we're absolutely aware of the fact that, you know, you may feel that you want to resubmit, and we're very happy to accept those as well. Okay, I'm going to sign off now, and thank you all for your questions and for participating. We do hope that we see some applications from you now. And as I said, if you do feel that this year is not the right year, please make contact with us, talk to us. The better we know you and what you're working on, the better able we are to, you know, to help you going forward and to really sort of, you know, give you the support that all writers need to do their best work. Okay, so on that note, I'm going to end it. Thank you very much for being with us this morning. And yeah, please email me at regional@writersvictoria.org.au or Alex, and her email address is access@writersvictoria.org.au. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.